Hello folks and welcome to Paddock Pass, your post-race edition for the 2018 Monaco Grand Prix. Party is in full swing at Red Bull because Daniel Ricciardo has redemption for 2016 and the win that went begging. He was fastest in FP1, FP2, FP3, Q1, Q2, Q3, took pole position, smashed it and led the race away from that pole position. Then we get to about lap 30-ish. Problem with the engine. You ain't going to do that to Daniel, not here. That's not fair. It's not right. But for 50-odd laps, he controlled the problem. He controlled the race and somehow kept Sebastian Vettel behind him and won, finally here on the streets of Monte Carlo. First time for Daniel Ricciardo who's ever won a race from within the top three. Rich rewards. As we said, redemption for that win that went begging a couple of years ago. Nobody will be happier here in Monaco tonight. It's okay. We very nearly got somebody walking through. That's all right. Nobody will be happier than Daniel Ricciardo tonight. Sebastian Vettel did all he could. Just not quite enough on a weekend when really there just wasn't anybody in Daniel's league. Lewis Hamilton ultimately P3 still leads the championship. Here is then your top three at the end of a Monaco Grand Prix, which for the last 50 laps was unbelievably tense.
Finally put it to bed. Redemption has been served. It was served kind of cold. The race sucked. We had problems, too many for my liking, but we got there, so I'm happy now. It was stressful, but got to the checkered flag first, so I'm happy.
How big were those problems? Were you in the car early in the race thinking, "Oh no, not again"?
Yeah, exactly. As soon as I got out of, I don't know what corner it was, but I remember just putting my foot down and I had a significant loss of power, and immediately I didn't know what it was. I just thought it's done. You know, when you feel loss of power, you just feel it. You think it's just going to keep going, and fortunately we lost it, but it stayed. So I don't know, we had to move the brakes like 7 clicks forward, 7% forward, because the rears were getting hot with the K, and it wasn't fun. We had to lift and coast a lot to save the brakes, save temperatures, but again we got there. Fortunately it happened on a tight circuit like this where it's hard to overtake.
Yeah, I think it was a tricky one for all of us to manage the tires. Obviously following doesn't help, but straights aren't quite long enough. Even with the problem he had, losing power, it wasn't there for the taking. So in the end he was just too quick in the places going or leading onto the straight where you don't need necessarily power. So we were never close enough.
Does it ever play on your mind as well, the fact that Daniel is a long way back in the championship battle and Lewis is the guy that you're chasing and he's behind you?
No, I think you race here, I wanted to win. I had a better start, I went for it, I had wheel spin then, but there wasn't really anything I could do, and then I knew that it would be difficult. End of the first stint when Lewis pitted, I think Daniel picked up the pace. Initially we could go with him and then he opened up. We were running into trouble. So we then had to cover for Lewis and made sure we stayed there, and that was pretty much it for the end of the race.
I mean, it was not a bad result, and quite happy with third. We only lost the 3 points, so ultimately you never want to lose any points, but better than, it's damage limitations really on the track where we knew that we were less than par performance-wise.
So that is your top three. Now the story of the race today was obviously Daniel managing that issue, bringing the car home to win. It was Sebastian trying to find that way past him and ultimately couldn't. But it was also really a story of tyres and how they came to play, who was able to get them turned on right at the start, the ebb and the flow. And at one point we thought that everybody that was looking at a one-stopper, particularly the Mercedes cars that had pitted really early, lap 12 Hamilton pitted, might have to make a second pit stop. Ultimately they didn't, somehow holding on to the end. But there was this real intricate, interesting strategic battle, like high-speed chess around the streets of Monte Carlo today. Who would jump first? Who would have to take that second stop if indeed they did? And the one driver that was looking really good throughout all of that was Valtteri Bottas, who changed onto the super softs rather than the ultra softs at that first stop when they moved off the hypers. Anyway, he managed to pull in Raikkonen, who at the same time had pulled in Hamilton, and it was a really fascinating, kind of sort of game of brinksmanship right up to the end. Ultimately it didn't come to pass. Nobody passed each other. It's Monaco. That rarely happens. But really interesting race, I think, from their perspective. Kimi Raikkonen ultimately coming home fourth. Valtteri Bottas coming home fifth. And here's a pair of fins.
My tires were okay. We had some graining in the first set, just suddenly before we pitted. But apart from that, they were fine. But like I said, there's not much that you can do when the guy in front can drive 5 seconds slower and there's no way to pass.
I can't be happy with fifth for sure, but I mean, of course, it always can be worse. But I think as a team, it was a little bit like a damage limitation for us. We knew it could be a difficult weekend, so it was. But what I was really pleased in the second stint was the car pace. You know, the super soft tire was working really well for us, but at the same time it was frustrating because I couldn't use the pace, you know, being behind other cars and nothing I could do.
And you call it damage limitation, but it's now 2 wins for each of the front 3 teams this season. What are you expecting when we head to Canada next?
Close race again between 3 teams. That's what we expect. But honestly, I think for us on paper, it should be better track than this. So hopefully we can be back fighting at the very front.
So that's your top 5. Now, the other Red Bull driver started at the back, so top 6 wasn't as expected. The guy who slotted into that 6th place. There's something about French drivers in the Monaco Grand Prix. They always seem to go well. But one driver who drove exceptionally today to take that 6th spot was this guy right here, Esteban Oaken. And you're about to hear from him right now.
Fantastic result for us today. I mean, P6 is good, but the pace we had in the car was unbelievable. You know, I was quickest on track at some point, which was very, very impressive. I was catching, Bottas and Raikkonen by 1 second a lap at some point. I think our understanding of tires was really, really good, really strong. And yeah, today I'm more than happy. The boys are really happy. I'm looking forward to many more weekends like that.
And obviously there wasn't a lot of movement in terms of positions in this race, but how stressful is it for a driver inside the car, keeping up that concentration for 78 laps?
Yeah, not easy, especially that, under the safety car I warm up too much my brakes. So I finished with a little bit of difficulty on that regard, but we finished it, no problem. We are better than that.
And do you hope that this result really kickstarts your season and allows you to push on from here?
I definitely hope, it hasn't been an easy start, but today with the pace we have, I think we can carry that over the next weekends.
So in the final laps of the race, Esteban Oaken there had a really nice little tussle and was getting caught up by 2 drivers who were 2 of the latest drivers in the entire contest to stop. They were Pierre Gastly and Nico Hülkenberg. They had a wonderful tussle. Hülkenberg ultimately on the really quick tyre at the end, trying to force his way through the top 10, trying to get up as high as he could, came to Gastly, couldn't get by him. So really fun, really exciting end to the race and good stuff. Unfortunately, we didn't get to interview in the pen either one of the Renault drivers. We spoke to Hülkenberg on the F1 Live Twitter show. Delighted with his drive today as well. He should be. Carlos, I think, will be pretty happy with the job that he did as well. Ultimately, he led his teammate through because he knew that he had to fire off ahead. Couldn't do much about Verstappen in the end either. So we haven't heard from either of the Renault drivers. But here is Pierre Gastly at the end of, again, it's a Frenchman doing brilliantly in Monaco. What is it about this place? But yeah, very happy man at the end of the Grand Prix.
Fantastic race. Yeah, I really enjoyed. It was just amazing to drive on this track since Thursday with this car. So pure joy to finish the weekend with the 7th place, because we didn't expect to be that fast or to be in such a position to score points. And starting P10, we knew it would not be easy. And the car was just fast, not so much degradation, just pushed flat out, and in the end we managed to score some points.
And just talk us through those final laps, because you're coming under quite a lot of pressure in the closing stages.
Yeah, I had pretty fast guys behind me. So it wasn't easy, especially with I had a bit of graining on the front, so I was struggling a bit. Esteban in front as well was struggling as well, so I was trying to stay focused on the car in front. And then we know it's Monaco. They were not gonna fly over me, so they would have to find a way. And I knew that I just needed to be focused, not to do any mistake. That's what I tried to do. And in the end it was fine. Yeah.
Now, starting P20 in Monaco is never anybody's idea of fun, but Max Verstappen had nobody to blame for that other than himself, crashing in FP3, taking himself out of qualifying and giving himself a massive uphill struggle in the race. But he drove well, drove excellently actually, overtaking a lot of people and ultimately coming home in the top 10. P9 for him, but when you look at the pace that he had, that Red Bull had, P9 is not a good result. it's not where he should have been on a weekend where Red Bull should have been 1-2 on the grid, arguably should have been 1-2 in the race. A weekend of what could have been then for Max Verstappen.
I definitely enjoy myself out there, passing a few people and having the right strategy. Of course, it's not where I wanted to finish. Looking back on the whole weekend with the performance of the car, but if you have to start last after the problem I had with the crash in the last practice, then you try to do the best you can, and that was 9 today.
Yeah, was there anything that you did differently in the race today? We heard your race engineer saying keep the passes clean. Did you have to sort of rein yourself in at any point?
No, I mean, I know really well what I have to do and what not. So, of course, I cannot permit myself to go really all in and just see where the outcome is. That's just in the situation I am at the moment, but, that's how it is. But I think everything was all well calculated.
Yeah. And how do you reflect on the weekend as a whole? Some positives, some negatives. What do you take away from Monaco?
No, it's positive. I think the car is really strong. Of course, not on every track we can show that full potential because of the deficits on the straight, but it's always good to know that we have a great car.
Okay, so running through your classified order at the end of the Monaco Grand Prix. Daniel Ricciardo, P1, already been there. Vettel second, Hamilton third, Raikkonen fourth, Bottas fifth. Then Ocon, Gasly, Hülkenberg, Verstappen and Sainz Jr. Ericsson came home P11. Now his teammate Charles Leclerc lost his brakes coming out of the tunnel. That ultimately, he tried to get out of the way of Brendan Hartley but couldn't, coming down into the chicane. So disappointing end to the race for him. Ericsson though just out of the points, so let's hear from Sauber.
In the end it was all about hunting down Carlos because he was really struggling with his tires, and I think just another lap or two I think I could have maybe made it past because he was really in deep trouble. So a bit frustrating. I was 11th, same sort of margin a couple of weeks ago in Baku, and there was the same thing there with the guy ahead really struggling with tires, so I just needed a couple of more laps to get into the points. So yeah, getting close.
Well, it's a high downforce circuit here though, and Sauber again showing that it's got the potential to score points. So are the signs good even if the final result is no points?
Yeah, I think so. I think all weekend we've been quite competitive, and it's a track that, like you say, it shouldn't really suit us because of the high downforce demands. I think that's not our strongest point. So with that in mind, I think we've had a good weekend, and being so close to the points is a positive sign. And now we go to Montreal, which is a track that really should suit us a lot better. So I'm really looking forward to that actually.
In the last 4 laps before the crash, my brake pedal was getting longer and longer, so we knew there was something wrong on the brakes, but it was basically too late for us to act. I tried to be the most gentle possible with the brakes, but they were very, very inconsistent. And at one point they just gave up completely. I mean, the first couple of corners before the crash, the last couple of corners before the crash, my pedal was extremely long, and then when I arrived in turn 10, I just went, but nothing happened. So not much, not enough, and I ran into the back of him. I tried to avoid him, but I don't think there was much more to do from my side. I feel a little bit sorry for Brendan, but yeah, again, I couldn't do anything better.
What goes through your mind in a situation like that? Because it must be a horrible feeling having your brakes going away from you on a street circuit like Monaco.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a bad feeling, but yeah, I was only thinking at finishing the race, so I was trying to deal with it. I did anything that was possible in my hands to try and help the brakes, but again, we realized too late that we had that problem, and it cost us to a DNF, which is a shame at home.
So, Sauber then, not in the points today, although it came quite close to being the points for Ericsson and possibly for Leclerc as well. Perez, his teammate, P12, P13, Kevin Magnussen. Horrible weekend for Haas, not on the pace at all. They think they know what the problem is. They think they know how to get around it for the next one, but this was one I think that Haas are going to want to forget.
I was just waiting for my brakes to overheat and for my engine to overheat, and it was pretty pointless race for us, but we're moving on, and we're all looking forward to Canada to put some new parts on the car and get back in our normal shape hopefully, and get back in the fight for points.
Yeah, you said the car wasn't in the shape you would hope for going into this race. Was there anything you could learn out there at all over those 78 laps?
No, not really. I think the car that we had this weekend is not representative of what we should have, and I'm just glad we're out of here, and can't wait to go to Montreal and get back in the fight, and because everyone in the team deserves that.
Are you confident this will be a one-off for Haas this weekend?
Yeah, I think we can never guarantee that we won't have bad races, but I think this was a particularly bad one. And I'm hoping we can get back in the fight and stay that consistency. The first 5 races were good, and especially performance-wise were good. So positive that we can do well.
So Magnussen P13, Grosjean P15, that's your Haas drivers for today. In betwixt them, Stoffel van Dorn P14, teammate Fernando Alonso, as yet an undiagnosed gearbox issue saw him, one of the very few retirees of the race, stopped down at Sainte Devote. So let's hear from Stoffel van Dorn. A weekend that could and should have given McLaren a big points haul ultimately brought them nothing.
The first stint was very tricky for us. We had a lot of degradation on the ultra soft, and that was really the part of the race where we had to make a difference, trying going long like Hülkenberg did. But unfortunately, we had so much degradation. Had to box early. I think we should have boxed earlier because we lost a lot of track ground anyway. And then had a lot more pace in hand than the cars in front. But Monaco, unfortunately, no place to overtake here.
Yeah, not the smoothest weekend for McLaren as well. Were you expecting more coming here with this car and this package on this circuit?
Yeah, I definitely think we were expecting more. We made a good step forward in Barcelona, and then the test as well went well in terms of finding the right direction for our car. And I think qualifying was a step forward this weekend for the team. And it's very unfortunate to finish without points here.
And it's a weekend to forget for Williams. Sirotkin with a penalty for an infringement before the race even began. Tyres went on his car at the 3-minute signal on the grid. It's almost unforgivable at this level, but there you go. Be that as it may, they were then under investigation for touching the car before the 10-second penalty had actually been applied. They were let off that, though. The FIA simply were investigating it. Nothing untoward. Lance Stroll, slow puncture early in the race, having made contact with Marcus Ericsson. He had to stop, and then another puncture later in the race as well. It's been a horrible weekend for Williams, as I said, one to forget. Possibly the only highlight for them was they had 2 FW08s here earlier in the weekend, showing off championship pedigree that they had, that they don't now have. I wonder if that actually made the weekend all the more bitter for them. A sign of what was, a sign of just how big a mountain they have to climb in Formula One.
It was tough in some points, but some other points was very positive race. For sure I still need to talk to the guys to see what went wrong on the grid, and obviously we were very unlucky with this penalty. But apart from that, if we look on where we achieved to be with the pace, for sure the car had the pace to be in the points. We were fighting for the points, and that's a very positive thing. I enjoyed it. At this point, I enjoyed it a lot, but for sure, these things happen. It's not ideal that it happened in a race where we had really good chances, but what we can do, it's out of our control. So we're sorry for that, but once again, all I can say is we'll keep push even harder, and one day we'll be back here and smiling. So.
Lance, that looked like a really difficult day for Williams. Just sum it up from your perspective.
Yeah, it was a pretty terrible day. I got a puncture on lap 5 or lap 6, and then I lost a bunch of time, like a lap, just getting back to the pits, and then we had temperature problems the whole race. I was told to give gaps, let cars by, so we just weren't racing today.
Yeah, obviously in Monaco you lose a lot of time letting traffic through as well. How difficult was it to manage a situation like that from so early on in the race?
It wasn't. No, I don't think we were really racing after the puncture on lap 1. So there was not much opportunity today. I think we have big problems with cooling and temperature and all that kind of stuff with the car, so we can't really race. We can't stay within 5 seconds of a car that's in front of us, or else we're going to break down. So constantly being told to give gaps and give space, and it's pretty terrible.
Well, it's your home race next. Are you at least hopeful that Williams will go better there than they have here?
Absolutely. I want to have a good race in Canada.
So that is your lot from Paddock Pass here in Monaco. What a weekend. It's been amazing. Okay, it wasn't the greatest race ever, but it's Monaco. It rarely is. What we had, though, was, I think, a sensational drive, a genuinely sensational drive from Daniel Ricciardo. To have been told with 50-odd laps to go, your car might not even finish. You've got a major problem here, Sunshine, and you've got to get over it. You've got to figure out a way to get this thing home. Oh, yeah, and you've also got to stop Sebastian Vettel from overtaking you at the same time. That requires something very special. Daniel Ricciardo, a worthy winner this weekend. Redemption for him from 2 years ago. I think we can all leave Monaco very happy with the result. And does this put Daniel Ricciardo in contention for the World Championship? There's 14 points in it at the top. Lewis Hamilton still leads. Sebastian Vettel is second, but Daniel Ricciardo now sits third in the Formula One drivers' standings. Can't wait for the next race. That's at Canada in 2 weeks' time. From us, though, here in Monaco, we'll see you later.